The night my own son's lawyer served me a letter demanding I leave my cabin. I didn't cry. I brewed tea and picked up my red pen. Every wrong date, every lie. I circled in silence. By dawn, I had a plan to end the fight the lawful way. The percolator hissed the way it always did, steady, comforting, like a heartbeat that had never failed me. The morning news hummed low from the old radio, a preacher's voice giving way to the weather. I set my pill organizer by the window, sunlight glinting on the plastic lids. Then the phone rang. Caller ID. Calder. My stomach tightened before I even picked up. "Morning, son," I said, steady but cautious. His voice was clipped, too brisk for early morning. "Mom, about the Forest House. We need to be practical." I leaned against the counter, eyes on Harlan's old coffee mug. "Slow down, Calder. I pay my bills." He kept going, spitting numbers, talking about taxes and assisted living. "Market's up right now," he said, like I was one of his clients. I sipped my coffee and said, "I've lived long enough to know markets go both ways." A chime broke through our awkward silence. "Hi, Mom, it's Selene." My daughter-in-law's voice sang from the speaker. "Too sweet. We just want to help. That property is an underperforming asset." I could almost hear her smile. "I emailed a package you can sign today. Makes things easier," Calder added. "And safer. Mom, you don't need to manage all this." Selene's tone shifted, polished like a lawyer. "If you delay, we may need to consider a guardianship filing just to protect you." I straightened in my chair. "Why the rush?" I asked quietly. "Liability, vandalism, insurance exposure," she said, her words clicking like coins in a jar. "Send the documents," I told her. "I'll review them. No more, no less." I ended the call before they could turn concern into control. When the email came, I already knew it wasn't going to smell right. Subject line: disposition of Pine Hollow property. Draft. 3 attachments weighted like bait. A listing agreement, a power of attorney form, a seller disclosure already checked off. My eyes caught it. Seller acknowledges property not in regular use, I whispered. That's a lie. Another line. Agent authorized to secure premises. My jaw tightened. And then a clause granting Selene limited financial authority to protect elder safety. I picked up my red pen. I've always believed in paper trails. Sticky notes bloomed on the pages. "Who authorized these pre-checks?" I asked when I called. "Standard practice, Mom," Selene said, smooth as butter. "Standard for whom?" I asked. Steady. Silence stretched long enough to tell me everything I needed. "No signatures today," I said, and hung up. I spent the next hour talking numbers to my empty kitchen. Social Security, pension, utilities. Real math that didn't need their help. From the drawer, I pulled a manila folder marked Pine Hollow. Inside, old tax receipts, faded photos, and a note in Harlan's handwriting, blocky and sure, "Keep what matters." I smiled despite myself. I checked my accounts, called the insurance agent to confirm coverage, and scribbled a 3-line plan. Verify, visit, decide. That's how grown women handle business. I texted Calder and Selene. "No decisions without inspection. I'll be in touch." Calder called again within minutes, voice sharper now. "Mom, this isn't responsible." I let silence answer. "You forgot to pay that utility bill last month." He pressed. I opened my planner. "Paid on the 3rd, confirmation number 98214, I said calmly. "Don't test my memory, son." He mumbled something about concern, but I'd already tuned him out. Selene sent a calendar invite for a notary meeting. I declined it with 2 words. Not this week. The house was quiet again. I packed my tote. Water bottle, reading glasses, medication list, tire gauge. Everything I might need for a drive north. I called Reverend Amos Bell and left a voicemail. "Pray for clarity. Pastor, I'm headed to Pine Hollow." Before I turned out the light, I taped a note on the fridge. Due diligence. Then decision. At dawn, I locked my front door. The sky was the color of steel wool, soft and stubborn. I whispered to the empty street. North. The air before dawn in Texas smells like wet dust and old cedar. My porch light cast a yellow halo on the gravel while crickets gave their last notes of the night. I set my travel bag on the step and whispered to myself, keys, meds, water, no foolishness today. I checked my list twice. Pill case, zip tight, insurance card, AAA card, tire inflator, granola bars, bottle of electrolytes. On the kitchen TL, I left a note in big print. Left at 5:15 a.m., Route 271 North, ETA 3 o'clock p.m. My pastor would call it common sense. I call it independence. I started the car, radio low. The kind of gospel that stays with you longer than coffee. I adjusted my seat until the ache in my lower back eased, tapped the brakes, saw them flash red against the garage door. I didn't call Calder or Selene. I'd talk when I had facts, not when they wanted permission. As I buckled up, I whispered, "Lord, keep my mind sharp and my foot light." The key on my lanyard brushed against the steering column with a soft metallic clink. That sound pulled me backward in time. Harland had pressed that very key into my hand years ago after the summer storm that ripped through Pine Hollow. "If you ever doubt me," he'd said, "go north." I hadn't known what he meant then. Now, I did. The silver felt cool, almost cold. The faint smell of cedar still clinging to it from the hook by the door. I rubbed it between my fingers like a worry stone. Back then, I thought solo trips were for lonely people. Now, this felt less like a trip and more like a pilgrimage. I'm not sneaking, I told myself. I'm verifying. The difference mattered. I would not argue feelings by phone. I would argue facts in person. I set the cruise a few notches under the speed limit and kept to the right lane. My rule was simple. No rushing, no risk. Every 90 minutes, I'd pull over, stretch, and walk a few steps to keep my knees loose. The rule of 3 kept me grounded. Fuel above half, phone above 50%, mind above fear. When a pickup started tailgating, I flicked my signal and let him fly by. "Go on, baby," I murmured. "I don't wrestle with fools on I-20. The road stretched ahead, gray and endless. "You always liked a long drive, Harland," I said out loud. "Well, I'm bringing the truth home." The key in my pocket warmed with the heat of my palm, and I took it as a sign. By the time I reached the Love's travel stop outside Marshall, the sky had bruised into pink. I filled my thermos and leaned on the counter while the young clerk rang up my snacks. "You driving far today, ma'am?" he asked. "Far enough to think straight," I said. He grinned. "Well, you be safe now." I asked about road work ahead, and he warned me about a washed-out bridge near Gilmer. I bought a paper map because satellites quit when you need them most, and circled Pine Hollow with a pen. Outside. I checked the tires myself. A trucker offered to help, but I waved him off. "Got it, baby, just watching my numbers." I texted Calder and Selene. On the road, reviewing the documents after site visit. No more, no less. Rain began near Texarkana. The windshield wipers thudded like a metronome, and mist rose from the asphalt. A deer darted out by the shoulder. I braked smooth and steady, keeping the wheel straight. My heart raced, but I pulled over at the next turnout. I practiced my 4-count breathing. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. "Steady, Eudora," I murmured. Outside, I checked the lights, made sure nothing smelled burnt. I drank water, ate a few almonds. "Calm is power," I whispered, and rejoined the traffic when my pulse slowed. The land began to change past the state line. Hills rolled up like green waves. Pines thick and tall. The air smelled like resin and memory. A handmade sign by the shoulder read, "Pine Hollow Community. Keep it kind." That word, kind, cut right through me. I thought of Harlan mending church steps, fixing fences for widows who couldn't pay. Maybe that's why the place had called him back so often. "I'm not afraid of truth," I said to the windshield, "just of being last to know it." I rehearsed what I'd say later. I make decisions after facts. That's called adulthood. The key in my vest pocket felt heavier with every mile. Near the county annex, I pulled in on impulse. "Open for public records," the sign read. The clerk looked surprised but pleasant when I asked for the last tax statement and property inspection. "All current," she said. Printing the forms, repairs done 2 years ago by a licensed contractor named Simmons. I asked about any recent 911 calls. None on file for that address. Ma'am, I smiled, thanked her, photographed the documents, and tucked them into a red folder. Paper first, feelings second. That was my mantra. The final stretch to Palmetto Cove was lined with oak and pine. Gravel popped under my tires, the rhythm steady as a hymn. The mailbox still leaned the way Harlan used to complain about. I reached out, touched the rusted flag. The lane narrowed until branches brushed my mirrors. The scent of cut grass floated through the open window. Fresh, too fresh for neglect. I parked beneath the oak, turned off the engine, and listened to the quiet. My hand rested on the gate's cold iron. Cicadas droned. Somewhere beyond the trees, a wind chime tinkled. I whispered, "I came for truth, not permission." The iron latch felt cold in my hand. Rough where the paint had peeled, but clean where fingers had recently touched. Rust still kissed the hinge, yet the latch moved smooth, oiled not long ago. The grass smell was sharp, freshly cut, and the air hummed with that clean quiet that follows mowing. A wind chime sang above me, its tone bright and clear, no cobwebs clinging to the strings. I glanced down the walkway, edges trimmed, porch swept, hedges neat. "Neglect doesn't edge a walkway," I whispered. The gate creaked just once as I eased it open, then shut soft behind me. Someone cared for this place. The yard breathed like something alive, a green hose curled near the spigot, beads of water still glinting along its length. The soil around the hydrangeas was dark, freshly turned. The trash bin by the porch held a tied bag, liner printed with today's date. Porch boards showed new screws, and one plank was lighter than the rest. A pair of tiny rain boots, yellow with frogs, waited neatly by the steps. I lifted my phone, not to take a picture, but to steady my shaking hand. This wasn't about evidence anymore. It was about truth. "So this is what you kept alive, Harlan," I murmured. Then I heard it. Laughter. Not echoing ghosts, but living, breathing children. The sound skimmed through the trees, high and light. A woman's voice followed, warm and firm. Spanish lilt shaping a word I remembered from church volunteers. Resbaloso, slippery. I froze. This wasn't an abandoned property. I stepped carefully onto the porch, my hand brushing the railing Harlan had once sanded smooth for me. A bluebird feeder swung near the post, full to the rim with seed. Someone had filled it this morning. I whispered, "Ask, don't accuse," and climbed the steps. Rounding the corner, I saw an old tire swing swaying from the oak, rope thick and freshly tied. A small girl sat cross-legged on the steps, crayons spread like confetti across a notebook. Her curls were wild, her face serious with concentration. She looked up, not frightened, just curious. I raised a gentle hand. "Hi there," I said softly. Her notebook page showed a house, a man with gray hair, and a woman in an apron beside a wooden bench. In the corner, she'd written, "Mr. Harl fixed it." My breath hitched. My fingers brushed the key in my pocket without thinking, the metal warm against my skin. "I'm Eudora," I said, keeping my voice light. "I used to come here with Mr. Harl." The girl nodded solemnly. "He said it needed 2 people to be strong," she said, Francista Tugi, pointing at the bench in her drawing. "Who fills the feeder?" I asked. "Mama says kindness calls birds," she answered proudly. Her name, she told me, was Raina. She said Mister. Harl liked ginger snaps and fixed things without charging. We talked about the wind chime, I told her. "They tell you when the breeze remembers," she giggled. For a moment, the air felt holy. I moved slow, reading the yard like a ledger. Plastic bins labeled tools, seeds, patch kits lined the shed wall, everything tidy, nothing wasted. A small compost tumbler turned easily. Whoever lived here planned for growth. Not hiding, the gutter seams gleamed with new rivets. Ready for rain. I recorded a quiet memo into my phone. Taxes current, repairs recent, occupied by responsible party. Facts first, feelings second. The key in my palm pulsed with warmth, almost approving. On the porch table, a folded dish towel still damp, a paperback lying open with a grocery receipt as a bookmark. The date matched today, eggs, milk, school snacks. A knitting basket rested nearby, half a scarf blooming in autumn colors. A single mug with a lemon rind sat on a coaster. No dust. No ring. I murmured. I'm here to understand, not to evict. Footsteps sounded from inside, steady, unhurried. The door opened. A woman stood there, apron tied at her waist, eyes cautious but kind. We measured each other in silence, both standing on ground that held someone we loved. I kept my hands visible, my tone soft. Good afternoon, I said. The wind chime answered for both of us. After a long beat, I found the truest words I could offer. I think we both loved the same man's better self. The woman at the door introduced herself as Maricela de Luna, her accent soft but sure. I kept my hands visible and my voice level. I'm not here with papers, I said quietly, and I won't step inside unless you ask me to. Her eyes searched my face the way people do when a story they have been told starts to wobble. You're Eudora Lynell? She asked, her voice more statement than question. I am, I answered. Harland Lynell was my husband. The name hung between us, heavy as church bells. We both listened to the wind chime sway before she nodded once. Entree, por favor, she said, then added in careful English. Please come in, Mrs. Lynell. Inside, the house smelled like lemon and cedar. The living room glowed with quiet order. Afghan folded, shoes lined neatly, surfaces dusted. This was no trespasser's den. A corkboard near the window displayed a child's chore chart, a dentist appointment card, and a calendar marked with birthdays. A small altar on the shelf held a candle, a seashell, and a folded card that read, Gracias, Señor H. My eyes caught a repaired curtain ring and a cabinet handle tightened with new screws. Raina's crayons lay in a shallow tray labeled, Colors Today. I thought, this is stewardship, not theft. Maricela gestured to the kitchen table. Tea? She asked. Please, I said, and sat across from her. She poured without ceremony, her motions clean, practiced. She placed a plate of ginger snaps between us. I felt my chest tighten. Harlan's favorite, I murmured. He said the same. She replied. I looked at her directly. Tell me how you came to be here. Her answer came simple, factual. Storm damage first, repairs next, caretaking afterward. She explained bills paid, repairs contracted, years balanced between need and gratitude. I asked clear questions, dates, accounts, names, and she produced receipts in a transparent folder. I took photos, slipping each image into my red Cabin 2024 file. Paper first, feelings second, I said softly. She nodded, understanding the language of grown women who've both had to prove they belong. We spoke of repairs, porch rails, gutters, pipes winterized, and her details matched everything I'd seen outside. He said the bench needed sanding every spring, she said. He liked things to last. I smiled faintly. He always did. She described pharmacy runs, soups on days he felt weak, domino games when words ran short. She never said cancer, but I heard it in the careful pauses. You kept him from being alone in it, I said finally. Her eyes glistened, but her shoulders stayed straight. Then I saw the photographs on the wall. The first showed Harland between Raina and a teenage boy, sunlight in his gray hair, that same porch behind them. The next froze him older, thinner, wearing a knit cap but smiling just as stubborn. My hand found the counter for balance. Maricela's voice was steady. We only keep pictures we can look at without shame. He said not to hide truth. My throat tightened. Did he ask you to keep me from worrying? I asked. She looked down. He asked us to keep this place kind. I set my cup down carefully. I will not sign anything until I know every fact, I said. And I'm not here to throw anyone out. I want the truth, nothing else. She nodded. Then we share. You have papers. I have stories. We agreed to exchange both. I texted my pastor, I am safe. Truth unfolding. Then turned off the phone. In my notebook, I logged each name, each repair date, each receipt number. There's one more room I'd like to see. I said, his desk, if it's still standing. We walked the hallway together. The light was amber, the floorboards murmuring the same old song beneath my feet. A faint lavender sachet hung by the doorway. Maricela paused. Hand on the knob. Are you ready? She asked. I took a slow breath. Steady as prayer. Yes, ma'am. The hinge didn't creak when she turned it. Inside. Dusk pooled against the window. My fingers brushed the key in my pocket. It seemed to hum like recognition. The wooden box sat on Harlan's desk like it had been waiting for breath. The grain was smooth, except where his carving knife had caught decades ago, my initials. Etched just off center. The brass hinge was still crooked, the same flaw he'd called our fingerprint. I placed both hands on the lid, inhaled, counted to 4, and lifted evenly so the wood wouldn't crack. Inside lay envelopes bound with twine, a church bulletin tucked as a marker, and an old fountain pen beside them. The top envelope bore my name in Harlan's tight handwriting. For Eudora, when the road asks, I whispered. Well, Harlan, the road's asking. Maricela lingered near the doorway. I nodded once for privacy, and she stepped back. Silent witness. I unfolded the first letter and began to read aloud, because silence can make lies grow roots. His words came slow, shaped by pain and grace. Eudora, the doctors in Little Rock, gave it a name I couldn't pronounce. But it's mine to manage. I didn't want you carrying this when you already carried our whole life. My throat closed, but I kept reading. Maricela and her family helped with rides, meals, and laughter. They didn't owe me anything, but they kept me decent. He wrote of porch repairs, domino nights, chemo fatigue, and one steady fear. I didn't want to make you my nurse instead of my wife. At the end, he asked forgiveness, not for dying, but for hiding it. If you find this, decide in full light, don't let them spin a story for you. I reread each line until it settled like gospel. I made a voice memo, repeating the phrases for record. Paper trail for the heart, I murmured. Maricela placed a tissue beside my hand but didn't touch me. That restraint felt holy. Beneath the letters was a red folder labeled House, Care Plan, inside. Harlan had typed maintenance logs, contractor cards stapled neatly, a small budget taped to the back. One sealed envelope read, for Eudora and attorney Patrice Halford. The name matched my legal contact back in Tyler. I didn't open it yet, just scanned the headers. Another packet held a life insurance rider marked utilities and taxes, 10 years if needed. This wasn't a cover-up. It was structure. The man had built a future from his own ending. A spiral ledger lay underneath, columns sharp and deliberate. I flipped through pages, dates, payees, memos. Half the handwriting was Harlan's, half Maricela's, each line initialed. Roof seam rivets, invoice hash 47, ACP credit approved, property tax online, confirmation hash. Every entry honest as daylight. Then 2 lines stopped me cold. Delivery, packages picked up by Calder, dated months ago. My pulse stilled. My son had been here, twice. I snapped photos, whispered into my recorder. Children aware per ledger. Verify timeline. I closed the book gently. Fury was easy. Facts took courage. I turned to Maricela. Tell me about these deliveries. Her answer came steady. Calder collected boxes Harlan labeled personal. He'd signed receipts. Harlan had insisted on it. He said, so Eudora won't be gaslit later. She added softly. My eyes burned. Not from tears, but recognition. Harlan had seen this fight coming. I copied Patrice's number from the folder and said, I'll confirm every line with her tomorrow. Maricela nodded. We kept it ready for you. Then Miguel appeared in the doorway, removing his cap. Ma'am, he said, voice low. He set a tin of ginger snaps on the desk. For the lady of the house. I smiled despite myself. He pointed to a pencil mark on the wall. Mister. Harl tracked his good days by push-ups. Said he'd stop when he could beat me again. The room filled with a quiet warmth that made grief behave. Thank you, I told him. When they left me alone, I wrote my plan. Stay the night, call Patrice. Match records. I texted Pastor Amos. Found letters. Truth is steady. No message to my children yet. Timing is a form of power. I photographed the box, relocked the contents, and handed the key to Maricela. Hide it where only the honest would look. She nodded. Dusk deepened. I turned off the lamp. Tracing the window frame where pine shadows swayed, the wind chime gave one low note, like a breath released. My palm rested on the box. "I hear you," I whispered. From the kitchen came the kettle's soft click and Maricella's voice. "Supper's ready." I pocketed my phone and folder, turned toward the hallway, just as a car door slammed outside. I walked from the study with my folder under my arm and my phone in my pocket. Before I unlocked the door, I turned on the porch light. My house. My rules. Calder stood on the steps, chest puffed like he owned the air. Selene was half a step behind, her phone camera glowing red. The car idled with its headlights slicing through the trees. "Evening. Calder Lynell, Selene Hale," I said evenly. No shouting, no filming inside, and no talk without dates and documents. Calder tried to shoulder past me. I pressed my palm against the doorframe. "You will not enter my home without consent." My voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. Maricela and Miguel stood behind me, silent but steady. "You can come in," I said, "if you agree to my terms." They muttered yes. I noted the time aloud. 7:43 p. Calder wasted no time. "Mom, you're bleeding cash, taxes, insurance. This place is a sinkhole, and there's strangers squatting here." Selene joined in, her tone cool as ice. "We're worried about your safety. Eudora, maybe it's time we consider guardianship." She waved her phone like it was a badge. I folded my arms. "Which bill? Which date? Which confirmation number?" They blinked. Calder stammered about ongoing issues. Nothing specific. I set Harlan's ledger on the table, sliding it toward them. "These are the expenses. Each signed, each dated. You even picked up packages yourself." Calder, his eyes flickered. "That's not what it looks like," he snapped. I read the line aloud. "Delivery. Signed. Calder Lynell." Silence stretched so tight the clock tick sounded like thunder. "We're not debating feelings," I said. "We're verifying facts." I pulled out a chair and gestured. "Sit, both of you." Maricela stayed at the end of the table. Witness, Miguel stood near the hall, arms crossed but calm. "We'll proceed like adults," I said. 1, what you knew. 2, what you did. 3, what you want. 4, what will not happen. I laid out the maintenance plan beside the ledger. "No decisions tonight. Tomorrow's for documentation with my attorney." "Wham!" I tapped my phone and called Patrice Halford on speaker. "Patrice, you're on with my family." Selene's camera dropped immediately. Law changes posture faster than anger ever could. Patrice's voice filled the room. "Mrs. Lynell, can you confirm these individuals are present?" I did. She began asking direct questions. Calder, nervous, blurted, "We came up here earlier because—" then froze. Selene squeezed his wrist, but it was too late. "Because you were collecting mail tied to the house account?" I asked. "To prevent exploitation." He muttered. "We had a private investigator." Patrice cut in sharply. "Without consent, that's invasion of privacy. False guardianship claims can lead to charges." I looked at Calder. "So you knew about the occupants, about the upkeep, and still called them squatters?" He dropped his gaze. "Knowledge changes everything." I said. Maricela's voice broke the silence. "Mrs. Lynell, may I?" She played an audio memo on her phone. Calder's voice snarled through the speaker. "Pack your things or I'll make sure ICE hears about your paperwork." Selene's voice followed, smooth and cruel. "If Mrs. Lynell finds out, we'll say you forged signatures." Calder lunged for the phone. Miguel stepped forward, no aggression, just presence. I raised my hand. "Sit down." Patrice's tone hardened. "That recording constitutes coercion, possibly extortion." I wrote a note card. "Threat recorded, counsel retained." The tide turned. I drew a long breath. "You will not threaten people under my roof," I said. "You will not return without permission. From now on, communication goes through Patrice." They started to argue, but I lifted my phone, showing my active recording log. "It's all documented." Patrice's voice stayed firm. "I recommend they leave tonight," I added. "You are my children. You do not get to be my handlers." The sentence hit harder than any shout could. Calder stormed out, gravel spitting under his tires. Selene lingered, muttering. "You'll regret this." But the tremor in her voice told another story. I closed the door gently. The house felt like it took a breath of relief. Maricela handed me a glass of water. Miguel set the phone back on the desk. I texted Patrice. Meeting confirmed, 9 a.m., County Courthouse. Then I wrote one line in my red folder. Tonight I chose truth over inheritance. The porch light clicked off. The woods held their breath. Then came another knock. Measured official. A county truck idled outside, seal gleaming on the door. "Ma'am," a man's voice called. "We had a report of a disturbance and possible trespass. Mind if we talk?" I straightened my back, grabbed my folder, and opened the door. Deputy Orrin Tate stood on my porch, hat in hand, eyes steady but kind. I flipped the porch light brighter so the camera would catch everything. "Body cam's on, correct?" I asked. He nodded. "Good, let's start clean." I handed him my folder and ledger. "This outlines the incident. Family confrontation, threats recorded. I feel safe now, but I want documentation." He glanced toward the tire marks and asked who else was inside. "Residents and witnesses," I said, motioning to Maricela and Miguel. "We live orderly. No disturbance unless provoked." I showed him IDs, utility bills, deed references. "Here's your timeline. June call, August visit, tonight's confrontation, He scribbled on his pad. "You want them trespassed?" "Only if they return tonight," I replied. "Otherwise, log it and refer it to the county file," I added softly. "And please mark me clear with Adult Protective Services. Eating, sleeping, managing medication. I don't want false reports later." He took statements from me, Maricela, and Miguel. He radioed dispatch, read back the case number, and I wrote it on my folder tab in red ink. Proof before peace. Inside. We sat while he confirmed consent to record. Maricela pressed play. Calder's threat rolled out. Ugly and clear. Solen's voice followed, smooth as glass-cutting skin. The deputy's face didn't flinch, but his pen stopped moving. "I'll need a copy," he said. Miguel transferred the file directly to the county evidence portal. I slid over my own printout. Speaker IDs, timestamps, an intent labeled "Coercion under color of inheritance." Deputy Tate's camera caught every word. "You've got harassment here," he said finally. "Maybe extortion if your lawyer pushes it." "We'll push it," I said. He advised me to file for a protective order in the morning and offered a courtesy patrol overnight. I took it gladly. When he left, tipping his hat. The house felt taller somehow, like truth had stretched its spine. Later that night, I called Patrice. We went over the body cam case number, chain of custody notes, and filing plan. "Tomorrow," she said. "We do 3 things: protection order, guardianship objection, and lodge Harlan's maintenance letter as exhibit." Her voice was crisp, not cold. "I'll draft templates for Maricela and Miguel's witness declarations." I texted her photos of the ledger pages. "Clean," she replied. "Keep originals dry." I laid out my clothes, taped a note to the folder. "Bring 2 IDs, bring medication list." Before turning in, I wrote to myself, "Tomorrow. Paper will speak louder than blood ever could." The courthouse smelled like toner and old air. "Morning, ma'am," I told the clerk. 2 forms, please." She slid me protective order and incident supplement sheets. I filled them carefully. Dates, names, threats, no theatrics. Patrice arrived mid-morning in her gray suit, red nails like exclamation points. She checked my work, adjusted one address line, and added "no electronic contact" at the probate counter. She filed our objection to any guardianship petition. The clerk stamped, "Received 947 A." We watched the ink dry. A deputy passed with our earlier report already printed. Paper traveled faster than gossip today. I notarized everything. Maricela and Miguel did too. The sound of that final staple was cleaner than applause. Deputy Tate found us in the hallway with a printed incident summary. "Neighbors saw your son and daughter-in-law near the mailbox cluster last week," he said. "We're pulling HOA footage." I jotted "video" on my note card. Patrice smiled. "Let them collect the proof. We'll stay polite." Tate tipped his hat again. "Ma'am, you keep records like a prosecutor. That's half the battle." By noon, the footage came in. Solen snapping photos of my door, Calder prying open the mailbox frame, Date stamp 2 weeks ago. Patrice forwarded it straight to evidence intake. We watched the loop twice. That's them, Miguel muttered. I just nodded. Facts needed no echo. Patrice labeled the prints Exhibit C. At 2, the judge signed the temporary protective order, 300 feet. No calls, no emails. The probate clerk rejected their emergency guardianship claim for lack of cause. I exhaled, slow, steady. Patrice touched my hand. You did this. Miss Lynell, with dates, not drama. I texted Tate a thank you. His reply came quick. Service complete. Papers delivered. Back at the cabin, twilight poured through the pines. Maricela served dinner. Miguel made us laugh again. I called little Reina to thank her for the flowers she'd planted by the porch. Grandma Eudora, she said. The blue ones bloomed today. My throat tightened. So did something else. Sweetheart? Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail transcription. Solen's voice. Calm as a courtroom. You've made a mistake. Eudora, lawyers talk. Another buzz. Deputy Tate. They called for a welfare check. We declined. File flagged. I smiled faintly. Let them waste their calls. I poured tea. Set my folder on the table. Outside. Tires crunched the gravel. A black SUV rolled to a stop. The envelope handed to me bore my daughter's handwriting, above a law firm name I didn't recognize. The envelope sat untouched on the table until morning light filled the kitchen. I brewed my tea, called Patrice on speaker, and said, No surprises, not tonight, her voice, calm as ever. Open it with me on the line. I slit the seal with Harlan's old pocket knife. Inside was a lawyer's letter. Demand to vacate. It read, followed by a guardianship petition citing concern for declining capacity. Both signatures. My own son and his wife. I circled every wrong date in red ink. They weren't even in Arkansas that week. I muttered. Patrice sighed. Don't write them back. We'll answer in daylight, not behind closed doors. I decided where that daylight would shine. The community hall where Raina's youth group held potlucks. Announcements at 7:10, I told her. Bring your smile and your crayons. I texted Deputy Tate. His reply came quick. Off duty, but I'll be there. Your show, Miss Lynell. I labeled 3 folders, paper, people, peace, and laid them side by side. By afternoon, I met Patrice at the courthouse. Let's lock this down, she said. We filed the quitclaim deed with Life Estate. My name first, DeLuna's name's after mine. Clerk stamped recorded with a heavy thud. Patrice slid certified copies into the paper folder. Then came the trust amendment. A no contest clause. Any heir who challenges loses discretionary gifts, Patrice explained. But your grandkids stay safe in their own education subtrust. I nodded. Let them rise without my bitterness. She smiled. We also filed a formal response to the demand letter. Residents protected under Life Estate and active court order. Further contact constitutes harassment. By 2 o'clock, the HOA manager emailed confirming the mailbox footage preserved. I printed every page, labeling it Exhibit D, before leaving. Patrice typed 1 line for the evening statement. Kindness housed me. Now the law houses kindness. I signed it without edits. The community hall smelled of cornbread and polish. Rihanna ran past carrying a bowl of arroz con pollo. Say what you need, Miss Eudora, she whispered. By 7, the room was full. Choir ladies, veterans, neighbors. Half the town. Calder and Solen entered with 2 lawyers, their surprise visible. They'd expected whispers. They met witnesses instead. I stood behind the folding table with my red folder open. Thank you all for supper and patience, I began. This isn't about scandal, it's about stewardship. I introduced Maricela and Miguel, the hands that steadied Harlan's last years. Blood is love, I said, but paper remembers what love forgets. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Deputy Tate leaned against the wall, arms folded. No crosstalk, I warned gently. I'm too old for shouting. I turned on the projector. Exhibit A, body cam case number, audio threat transcript. Exhibit B, mailbox footage, Solen's hand on the latch. Exhibit C, Harlan's letter, his words thanking those who kept me decent. Then came the recorded deed, life estate sealed in blue ink. This, I said, lifting it high, is not vengeance. It's gratitude written in law. I face my children. You cannot evict me from a home I own for life, nor displace the people who sheltered your father's final breath. No yelling, no tears, just the sound of truth setting weight on the floorboards. Patrice gathered the exhibits. Tate nodded once. Silent affirmation. Then came consequences. I handed their lawyer a sealed packet, deed copy, protective order, and trust notice. He accepted, lips tight. You've been served, I said softly. Now you may sit. The room exhaled. I announced the scholarship clause, funds for the grandchildren's college if their parents cease harassment. The applause was quiet but honest. Patrice spoke next. Any guardianship filings will meet full opposition with verified evidence. Tate stepped forward, reminding all of the 300-foot order. I turned to Maricela and Miguel, holding out a small keyring. Stewardship is work, I told them. Work deserves tools. They hesitated. I closed their fingers around the keys myself. Earned, not owed. After the crowd thinned, I walked outside. The night air smelled like rain and cut hay. Raina sat beside me on the porch rail, humming softly. You won, didn't you? She asked. No, baby, I said. I remembered who I am. I wrote 3 letters before bed, one to my pastor, one to my advisor, one to my grandkids. No poetry, no pity, just instructions and blessings. I slid Harlan's last letter back into its tin, locked the drawer, and whispered, We did it right this time. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from a woman's voice, warm, unfamiliar. Mrs. Lynell, I'm with the union. Harlan helped us once. We heard what you did tonight. A pause, then a smile in her tone. We have something for you. It's a key, something he built, with your name on it. The porch light flickered once as I held the phone tighter. That single word echoing. Key. Harlan's secret. A gift. Or one last lesson in trust. I slipped on my coat, heart steady but curious. Somewhere in those Ozark woods, something waited with my name carved on it. What would you do next?